Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. The developer of the deck tracking software Firestone recently published some data on how Firestone users are playing Hearthstone, so I figured this would be an interesting opportunity to take a look at the popularity of the various game modes and see a little bit about what's going on with Hearthstone. So this is the most recent graph that has been published. It extends from March 2022 all the way to September 2022. And, well, there is a lot to unpack in this one. First of all, Firestone has been doing some advertising, Firestone has been doing some promoted streams as well with some popular streamers, and the popularity of Firestone has been increasing. We can quite clearly see that when we look at the graph for Battlegrounds, for example, because the Battlegrounds graph overall tends to be tending up and up, even when nothing is happening in the game, which just isn't how things go usually. The developer of Firestone has said that his deck tracker has bias towards Battlegrounds and towards Duels. Those are the game modes that are more popular than average within Firestone users. Other things that we can see, well, whoa, oh, look at that jump in Battlegrounds with popularity with the quest patch. Okay, Runestones came in that patch, Pay to Win came in that patch. It doesn't show up at all. Just huge jump in popularity, and I do have to say, I have played some Battlegrounds myself in this patch, and the quests meta has been pretty fun. It has been more fun than many of the previous metas, like Buddies metas for example, so yeah, I can totally see why people would play this, but any hope of widespread community action that would force Blizzard to not implement pay-to-win mechanics, that doesn't seem to materialize. Also, in the standard realm, murder at Castle Nathria. Castle Nathria was a really popular team. Everyone has always said pretty much that this is a very interesting team. There was a lot of hype about it. Hey, Castle Nathria, Side the Nathrius, these are really cool characters. And that really shows. Boom. Huge peak in standard Hearthstone. Also coming down a little bit faster than usual. So perhaps the team has not carried quite as well as the setting itself might imply. Other than that, we have Arena, we have Duels, we have Ranked Wild, and then we have Mercenaries. Well, Mercenaries, the red one is Mercenaries PvE, and then that flat line at the bottom, that's Mercenaries PvP. So Mercenaries PvP among Firestone users at least is pretty much dead. Mercenaries PvE, it goes so low over there, it's really hard to make out many changes among the less popular game modes there. But actually, if you were to zoom in and really take a look, you would see that all of the events have had a clear effect on Mercenaries PvE. So Mercenaries PvE, every time there's an event, there is increased interest, and overall the number of players seems to be increasing. Although, because the popularity of Firestone overall is increasing, so it is possible that it's more the overall popularity of Firestone that is increasing than the popularity of Mercenaries PvE itself. I also did a little bit of digging into the past and I found this graph. This graph is an earlier graph. It starts from October 2021 and ends in January 2022. And this is the graph that also shows the launch of Mercenaries. Mercenaries PvE actually among Firestone users jumped high above standard and actually reached the popularity of Battlegrounds, but only for a brief while, and since then it has been going down. What is maybe a little bit more interesting is that these two graphs have very different axis values. That y-axis, total hours played per day, note that it's completely different scale. So let's put them in the same scale. And then we can get an image like this one. Yeah, the scale of the earlier picture is really that much lower. And there's now a 2-month gap between these two pictures. So while they're connected there, right next to each other, there's actually a small gap between. And we can see that, yeah, Firestone has become a lot more popular. And it's really hard to distinguish how popularity of Hearthstone goes compared to popularity of Firestone itself. But for example, looking at those Mercenaries numbers, the current Mercenaries numbers at the very bottom aren't actually that low compared to the original numbers. Of course, if Firestone user base, for example, has doubled, then that would mean that we would have to take down the number of those graphs quite a bit lower in order to have them at the same value. I also took a look at HS Replay numbers. HS Replay is the more popular deck tracker for Hearthstone. HS Replay is basically the more popular one, and then Firestone is the competitor. Those are the two deck trackers that people are using. And HS Replay data, they don't show That's sort of nice graphs over long periods of time. But looking at the number of games played for the past week, we can see that Battlegrounds has had 4.2 million games played, Standard has had around 1 million games played, and Mercenaries PvP has had around 39,000 games played. So overall, the ratios are pretty similar. And actually, Battlegrounds is even more popular in comparison with HSRplay users than with Firestone users, even though the Firestone developer says that his mod is biased towards Battlegrounds. Then again, that might be a common bias. Because while the ratios are similar, even though not exactly the same, both of these mods are for PC only. You currently cannot have a deck tracker on Android or on iOS because of security reasons. It's not possible to build one. And then when you add to this the fact that Battlegrounds is a game that takes a longer time, it's more difficult to play on mobile, it's much easier to play Battlegrounds on PC, you can play regular Hearthstone games on mobile much more easily than Battlegrounds games, so it makes sense that Battlegrounds would be relatively more popular on PC, so maybe all deck trackers are biased towards Battlegrounds. And therefore, even though HSRplay shows Battlegrounds is even more popular than Firestone, that doesn't necessarily mean that Battlegrounds is the biggest game mode. But it does look like Battlegrounds is the biggest game mode among people who are playing Hearthstone on their computers. But do note that, for example, on Android, in Google Play Store, Hearthstone has more than 50 million downloads. So there are quite a few people who have been playing this on their mobile phones as well. So, comparing the numbers from HSRplay and from Firestone, it seems apparent that Battlegrounds is the most popular game mode on PC at the moment. And Ranked Standard comes in close second, except for the very near expansion launch, where Standard climbs above Battlegrounds. But when we take into account also the mobile players, then it's less clear. And unfortunately, I cannot say for sure whether Standard or Battlegrounds is the most popular game mode, although I guess just having the discussion means that Battlegrounds is pretty popular. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.